grew up in the outdoors. You know, it was a huge part of my upbringing since before I can remember.
How so? Like your family just did a lot outdoors, or
Yeah.
you felt like you were just
Yeah.
really connected, kind of?
Yeah, I
with
mean,
outdoors?
we were surrounded by the woods of my house, and that's where I spent all my time as a kid.
And was that West Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, all my family vacations when I was growing up were backpacking and canoeing and stuff like that. So it was always a huge part of who I was. You know, I mean, I do have an early memory of seeing a clear cut for the first time. And, you know, I remember being impacted by it. One of them, I think, was when I kind of gave up on the hope of any kind of normal future.
And
that was a moment in early 2008 at the Stegner Symposium at the U. I was talking with one of the speakers who was an IPCC scientist, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And she was a professor from Stanford, named Terry Root, showing their data on possible emission scenarios for the 21st century of, you know, where we could go off the charts and keep emitting tons of greenhouse gases, or we can stay on the path we're on now, or we can turn things around and start reducing them. And the best case down at the bottom peaked around 2030 and started coming back down. And so I questioned her afterwards and said, didn't the most recent report that you guys put out saying that if we didn't peak by 2015 and start coming back down, that we were pretty much all screwed and we wouldn't even recognize the planet? And she said, yeah, that's right. And I said, so what am I missing? And she said, you're not missing anything. We couldn't come up with any scenario, any politically feasible scenario that's on the table in which we avoided all the worst case consequences that we've been talking about. She said there were things we could have done in the 80s and things we could have done in the 90s, but it's probably too late. And she literally put her hand on my shoulder and said, I'm sorry, my generation failed yours. You know, she said that she didn't want to tell that to everyone during her presentation because she was afraid that it would just paralyze people. But what it did for me was make me realize that that this myth of the American dream of, you know, having a career and kids and retirement and all that stuff wasn't realistic for my generation. And that I really had nothing to lose by fighting back. You know, I think the reason that I got to a point of positive action from that traumatic reality was that I had other people that were dealing with that as well. I think I've also experienced that if we're willing to genuinely tell our story, then it can come across even in mainstream media. And I think a lot of what's held the movement back is a reluctance to tell a personal story and to tell a human story. And they actually say that what I did was not monkey wrenching. They said there's rules of monkey wrenching, and the first rule is you got to get away.
You got caught.
Yeah, and that was.
It's always better to get caught.
Right, and that
in
was,
the long run.
You know, that was the point of what I wanted to do, was to get caught. And I think that's why what I did was probably more, or was probably closer to civil disobedience than to monkey wrenching.
Sure.
Because the trial and all that stuff was actually more important than the act, I think. The result, the public discourse that it stimulated was more important than just the direct impact.
Do you draw any parallels with what's happening in Egypt and Tunisia and Libya with what can or does happen here?
I certainly think they're connected because it's the first time that my generation has really seen that kind of success for people power, for resistance, and so I think we're starting to believe in it again. And you know, we're seeing that. I think in Wisconsin, I think that's partly inspired by what's going on in Egypt. That sense that that when people stand together, there's no force, no army in the world that's going to stop them. And that's really a new paradigm for my generation. You know, that I was born the year that Ronald Reagan took office, and so the reality throughout my lifetime has always been that corporations are powerful and people are weak, or governments are powerful and people are weak, and there's nothing you can do to change that. And now that paradigm is starting to shift, and people are actually starting to see that that's not true, and that there is something else that's possible, and that an engaged citizenry really can be effective at standing up to those powerful institutions. And I think the first and most important step is for people to have a commitment to actually being a powerful agent of change. And I think that's why I was able to see the opportunity to take action at this auction, was that in the year leading up to that, I was making that commitment that I was going to be a powerful agent of change. And that's when I started seeing the opportunities. And I think if people are of the mindset that they're weak and powerless, that they're just a victim of their society, nothing I tell them to do is going to be effective at changing that. But if people are of the mindset that they are a powerful agent of change, that they are a citizen, that they are a human being with the ability to inspire and engage others, and that's really powerful for them, then they don't need me to tell them what to do, and they're going to see those opportunities to take a stand. No, I don't feel like that, because it's only temporary. They can only put me away for so long. But I do feel like I'll outlast them.
As in how?
Well,
Like outlast them how?
I fully intend to outlast the oil and gas auctions. I intend to outlast their definition of justice that requires the ignorance of a jury. I intend to outlast all the injustices that I'm struggling